Greetings to all. I'm Snail P. Sanathanan, research scholar. My co-presenter is Dr. Vinod Balakrishnan, professor. We are both from the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, NIT Tiruchirappalli, Tamil Nadu, India. Our paper is titled Performing Offense, Redrawing the Lines of Political Cartoons. Offense is a trusted rhetorical device in political cartooning that weaponizes the humorous communication with the aim of inciting response and initiating dialogue. The performance of the offense, which presupposes a target, the object of ridicule, and a reader who can also be the target, enacts a spectacle of punching the target before the reader, thereby compelling the latter to respond to the representation and through it to the argument of the cartoon. Given the predominance of the image over the word in the medium, the offense of the cartoon is primarily visual in nature. The paper examines the general nature of the cartoon offense by analyzing first the formal properties of the medium as well as the cartoonist performance, and second, the response of the reader, especially the target, to the representation, even as it gives credence to the social role of the political cartoon. The paper argues for an ethical delimitation of the offense and attempts an experiment in delimitation by experimenting with select controversial cartoons. The structural ontology and the performative dynamics of the medium render the political cartoon intrinsically offensive. The performance of the cartoon involves the construction of a symbolic field that disrupts the naturalized codes of representation. Through this, the cartoon challenges not only the representation but also the hegemonic power that habituates people to that representation. The salient features that contribute to the representational idiosyncrasy include caricature, ambiguity, metaphor, style, stereotype, etc. Each of them manifests a different mode of giving offense and therefore could be said to constitute a vocabulary of offense. Caricature enacts symbolic violence through formal distortion. Within the representation, it manipulates the body of the target by distorting, through exaggeration or minimization, their features, thereby rendering them laughable or condemnable. Ambiguity poses the challenge of the unfixability of meaning. It transforms interpretation into a process that is, according to Simon Weaver, socially out of control and something that aggravates the unexpected. It intensifies the offense by undoing the target's reassurance through meanings and interpretations outside their radar of comprehension. Metaphors underlying principles negate denotative reading, while the choice of metaphor used for deliberate provocation is formed by uncomplementary ideas. Since the very idea of a metaphor is founded on the breach of the naturalized codes of representation, the potential for offense is intrinsic to the modality of the metaphor. In other words, for causing offense, it's not imperative that the metaphors be offensive metaphors. The manner of employing caricature, ambiguity, metaphor, etc. is the style of the cartoonist. An individualistic feature, the style is a means by which the cartoonist controls offense. Since the creation and reception of the political cartoon takes place against a history of visual culture The style can have connotative associations, which explains why some styles are viewed as more offensive than others in a given context. Stereotypes are collectively shared means of giving offense. They are the result of the essentializing of the representation of groups and communities by cultural texts that share the same ideological framework. From the perspective of the agent who performs offense, the cartoon offense can be divided into intentional offense and inadvertent offense. The former is intended by the cartoonist and to which end the vocabulary of offense is employed. The latter happens when the readers perceive in the performance an offense unintended by the cartoonist. The analysis of the intentional offense as performance sheds light on the nature of the cartoonist performance itself, which involves creating a route for the transmission of offense through style, content, and presentation. The communication of the intentional offense calls for a categorical expression which leads the readers to the semantic load in the representation, underplaying the rationale of intentional offense makes the cartoon vulnerable to chance interpretations. British cartoonist Martin Rawson uses voodoo as a metaphor to demonstrate the nature and mechanism of the political cartoon and its offense from the perspective of the cartoonist. This metaphor formalizes the relation between the cartoonist and the target, as well as the psychological impact of the former on the latter. It addresses two crucial aspects of the cartoon offense, namely attack and control. Attack results from the symbolic violence or the formal distortion by the caricatural dimension, which mirrors to some extent actual physical violence on the body of the target. The control is realized through the embodiment of the target within the representation by the demiurgic vision of the cartoonist which essentializes the character of the targets. According to this metaphor, the representation exists as a simultaneous reality that is linked to the target of offense as if by sympathetic magic. The performative injury may translate into real damage for the target on psychological, social, or political levels. Now, coming back to inadvertent offense. The inadvertent offense is caused by the polysemic nature of the visual expression, which triggers boundless interpretability, thereby undermining the artist's control over meaning and offense. Here, the readers perceive in the performance an offense different from that which is intended and deliberately performed by the cartoonist and ascribe it as the actual offense of the expression. The paper uses W. J. T. Mitchell's metaphor of ventriloquism to illustrate the manner in which the inadvertent offense is taken. Here, the offended parties are compared to the ventriloquist who attempts to establish the dummy as taking a life and voice of its own, while it is only their own voice that is attributed to it. Here, the dummy and the voice stand for the cartoon and the inadvertent offense, respectively. The paper also uses Victor Navasky's hypothesis of the nature of the political cartoon as uncontrollable totems to point to the danger posed to the cartoonist's control over meaning and offense, especially when the cartoon assumes an agency of their own in the public realm. The potentially inexhaustible interpretability granted by the visual nature makes the cartoon capable of setting off an infinite number of offenses. The paper also addresses the question of controversy, which is the public display of taking offense, and argues that cartoon expressions which are offensive by the standards of the art form are not a guarantee of controversy or vice versa, and that controversy is subject to external political, socio cultural factors. The historical association with the press and its acknowledged status as a prominent form of political discourse have set ethical standards for the political cartoon. In order to ensure that the offense follows an ethical route, the paper argues for the delimitation of offense. The delimitation takes into account the directionality of the offense and problematizes its function if it is aimed against targets lower in the power relation than the cartoonist and is serving the regressive function of reinforcing prejudices. It helps to identify the effects of, if not the purpose behind the offense, and explains how offensive humor is generally perceived as inappropriate when its direction is from a sender belonging to a majority community to a target of belonging to a minority community, and much less problematic when it travels in the reverse direction. The delimitation sensitizes the cartoonist to tropes that have been historically used against certain communities with the aim of denigration and the fueling of hatred, thereby preempting untenable forms of offense. The delimitation marks the contours of a creative space marked by social, ethical, and legal accountability. This space prevents the cartoon from becoming the product of either an overpowering and self-defeating regulation of political correctness or a total rejection of it that extols the uncritical use of offense. The delimitation identifies the problem with a position of equal offense or the exculpatory approach to offense as embodied by the French satirist magazine Charlie Hebdo, as that while it gives offense to all, the injury that the offense inflicts is not the same for everyone. The principle driving the delimitation is that satire is, as defined by Jonathan Swift, not only about revenge or offense, but also about reform, which is embodied by a progressive intent. It is this quality that redeems the offense of the cartoon from becoming mere abuse. In this experiment in delimitation, the paper identifies the actual and potential causes of offense in a selection of controversial cartoons and redresses the indefensible forms of offense by reworking the contentious aspects of the representation located primarily in the vocabulary of offense. The first cartoon that is used for reworking is Barry Blitz's cartoon of the Obama couple for the cover of the July 21st, 2008 issue of the New Yorker. In this cartoon, in order to satirize the right wing that ran a smear campaign against the then Democratic presidential candidate Barack Obama, the cartoonist used the very vocabulary of the right wing and expected the readers to understand his intention. In this cartoon, Barack Obama and his wife Michelle Obama are shown as doing a fist bump in terrorist garbs inside the White House. There is a portrait of Osama bin Laden hanging on the wall, and in the fireplace, the flag of America is burning. However, the controversy that erupted proves that the cartoon failed to deliver this intended sarcasm as well as the offense. To most readers, it lacked enough cues to suggest that this was not a caricature of the Obamas, but, but rather a meta caricature, a caricature of a caricature, according to Victor Navarsky, and that the Obamas were not the real target of the satire. In the redrawn image, we have introduced the real target of the satire. The figure shown as painting the portrait of the Obamas metonymically represents the right-wing view. The smile on his face should be read as signifying the malicious intent to defame the presidential candidate, and the caricatural way that he has been represented suggests that he is the one who's being caricatured here, and hence the real target of the offense. As part of this project, we have reworked four more cartoons. This cartoon is by the Australian cartoonist Mark Knight of the US tennis player Serena Williams, published in the Herald Sun on 10 September 2018. This is the third cartoon by Portuguese cartoonist Antonio Moreira Antunes in the New York Times. And this cartoon is by Hem King Song the, for the New York Times. And finally, this cartoon is from the cover of the Charlie Hebdo in 2021. In all these examples, we have successfully eliminated the untenable forms of offense by redrawing the cartoons. To conclude, offense facilitates the assault of the laughter and ensures response through provocation. The political cartoon is both formally and principally conducive to offense. Question of cartoon offense necessitates considering both the aspect of giving offense as well as the aspect of taking offense. Ethical delimitation prevents offense from turning into bullying or abuse. And with this, our presentation ends. Thank you all for listening.